What's up, everybody? It's Keef from KeefKeys.com, and on this episode of Behind the Mix, I'm sitting with the representative, uh, one of the components, one of the arms to one of the hottest producing groups out right now from the Legion. None other than Gabe Schillinger. What's up, man?
What's up, man? I love the movement you got going on, and I'm honored to be a part of it. So I'm just happy to be here.
Okay, so before we start, um, this is a big deal for me, y'all. I've been following the Legion for a little bit now. It's definitely an honor for me to actually sit down and talk to Gabe right now. They have worked with a lot of different people. French Montana, Bum B, E40. They have worked with MTV, a whole bunch of. We'll get into all of that, but um, I just wanted to say that this is an honor, man, and thanks for just doing this. Thanks for helping the people out. So, um, before we get into any like real big details or whatever, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of walk us through the journey of how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you the medium version. I won't make it too long, but
Yeah.
some details. So, grew up in the Bay Area, Northern California, and started out as far as music goes. I played bass a little bit in school or whatever, but I never really got into really making music till late in my high school career, like senior year of high school, and that was when uh, my dad had a little recording studio at his house, so that kind of gave me the chance to kind of mess around and play around with some of the stuff that he got, and that's the first time I really sort of fell in love with creating music as opposed to just playing in like just a band or whatever. And then from there, I went to school for 1 year down in UC San Diego, and kind of mostly did general ed, studied a little bit of music or whatever. Didn't really like the music stuff that had going on down there. Came back that summer after that first year, and I started interning at a recording studio called Tarpan Studios, which is run by a dude named Nardo Michael Walden, who is a guy who's won a Grammy for Producer of the Year. He's won a Grammy for Song of the Year, for Album of the Year. Really was at the top of his game, sort of like probably late 90s, working with like Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey and Aretha Franklin, and the list goes on and on. And so I kind of got really lucky where I just looked up in the phone book. This was a long time ago. You could tell that I actually had a physical phone book that I looked in, and just looked for recording studios in the area, and it happened to be the first place that I called. Didn't even know who he was at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, come on down there. I can use a little help or whatever." And so that was just one of those twists of fate that was just so lucky where, ended up learning a lot from him, got a lot of opportunities from there. And then around the same time, I also met up with another guy, a student named Scott, who wanted to get into the music industry, and he had a lot of money. He had done really well in real estate, and he was ready to put a bunch of money behind me and this other artist, dude named Dion. And so I felt like, well, shit, I don't need to go back to school. I already got it. I'm working here with Narda at Tarpan. I've got this guy who's going to put some money behind it. And, I felt like, oh, this is going to be easy. I thought making music was hard. And then, of course, it wasn't so easy. And certain thing, some of the situation with Scott kind of fell through. But what it did do for me was it got me focused on music. And so I kept working at Tarpan, started working at another studio called Laughing Tiger. And that's where I met a lot of the Bay Area rappers and stuff, where I met guys like E40 and Turf Talk and a lot of these kind of guys, and ended up opening up my own little studio and teamed up with my boy Phil. We used to go by the Slap Boys. That was our original name back in, we started in 2005, I think, or no, 2000, yeah, I think 2005. Yep, we were the Slap Boys, and we started out making beats, just for whoever in the area or whatever, and kind of the first, kind of next level up that we got was we started working with like Killa Tay, who's relatively well known out here, and then after that did a lot of work with a dude named Messy Marv, and that kind of put us on a little bit where people really knew who we were. We made a couple songs that, at least in this area, a lot of people kind of know and kind of at this point grew up with because it was so long ago. And basically, just to fast forward, just kind of added more people onto the team. My boy Nate, who's amazing on the keys. Sebastian, who goes by Nexus, super talented guy. Some vocalists, Vidal Garcia, Millions, and kind of just been growing from there. We got some of the team down in LA. Some of us, including myself, are still up in the Bay, and yeah, that's the medium version.
Cool, because I was just about to ask you, like, how did the Legion actually start? We all have our own starting grounds, and now it's pretty cool to hear how you got the experience that you've got so far through the industry, actually working through these studios, and then you obtained that knowledge and were able to actually do your own type of thing. And now we're in such a generation to where startups are like this, and it's not necessarily based upon experience, or a lot of people don't have a lot of that studio experience and those opportunities to meet all of these different artists and to obtain the knowledge to which you can actually run a fully functional music business. And it's pretty cool to hear how you went from studio to studio, and that's kind of how you even built a lot of the relationships that you've built to even get to where you are now. Because a lot of times the main form of knowledge nowadays for everybody is YouTube, where it's the source for everything is Google nowadays. You know what I mean? And everybody has a webinar, and everybody is everybody has a plan to show you how to do it. So it's kind of cool to hear that. I mean, we still have those few, and honestly, it kind of speaks for the business that you have now. It kind of shows the structure and the foundation that you actually have, and why you actually are doing as well as you're doing now with it, and it's because of all of those things that you went through. So how would you actually describe the Legion to someone that has never heard of you before? Like, how do you describe the Legion?
Man, the Legion, well, it's a collection of mostly producers and some singers and songwriters. And man, that's a good question. It's funny. Sometimes it's hard to explain, like, especially people aren't super familiar with how kind of the music industry works, and sometimes it's hard to explain what we do. But basically, there's a couple things we do. So right now, I'm in my recording studio, which is in San Rafael, California. Been in this location for about 10 years, and so one of the things that we do is studio time. So people come in, pay an hourly rate for studio time, or they might have something that they record somewhere else, and they're coming in and they want to get it mixed. Like, for example, earlier today, I had a artist named Mr. Fab in here, who's a dude who, from the Bay. You definitely know who he is. If you're not, you might know who he is anyways. But he's got a ton of people on his new album that I'm mixing, which is pretty exciting. So I got to mix like a Snoop verse, and I got to mix Kendrick Lamar's on there, and Raekwon, and who else? Keisha Cole. I know I'm forgetting a lot of people. It's crazy the features that are on there. So anyway, sometimes people will come to us with projects that they've recorded somewhere else, and they want to get mixed. That's kind of almost one business, is the recording studio. People are paying either hourly or they're paying for mixes, stuff like that. So that's one thing. And then there's the production side of it. And so that can mean, an artist coming in here and listening to the library of beats we got. We sell them a beat, they buy the exclusive rights. Basically, that means they get to use it. We might make some deal for the publisher or whatever, where we're splitting some of the money in some kind of way, but basically it's their song. And that's, as far as production, that was our business model for almost 10 years. It was really only in the last couple years where now we've got basically what's really a third business, you could say, which is sort of the online beat game, I guess. And what comes with that, of course, is non-exclusive licenses, and selling leases and stuff like that. And so that's something really, I think I really started doing that probably like the summer of 2014. Really didn't get heavy into it until about 2015. So it's actually pretty recent that part of the business has come. But kind of like what you're saying, it helps that we've got this background. So there's a really strong foundation. Like, you could say, as far as in the online beat game, we're pretty new. We've got this strong foundation where we've been producing for people and been building relationships. And I've been running a business for a long time. So now it's kind of taking that approach and putting it into this new area of business, which is selling beats online. And it turns out I really like a lot of the stuff that comes with that. I never got into really being an entrepreneur before. Where before, you know, it was all word of mouth, and we were lucky enough to kind of have be established enough here where really word of mouth, you know, would keep us busy. We didn't need to do anything else. But once you're trying to reach people all over the world and you're trying to sell a lot of leases and you're trying to do all this kind of stuff, then it becomes about, you know, learning about email marketing, learning about how to promote yourself on social media, and you know, buying ads and all this other kind of stuff that that's completely separate from making music. It's a completely different job, and I'm lucky. For me, it turns out I like it. It's kind of fun. I like learning about this stuff. You know, I like learning about what other people are doing. You know, so it's worked out. But that's, you know, that's another job. So there's sort of those are sort of the three, I think, different things that the Legion does.
Cool. I mean, that's I like the fact that because you just answered a lot of questions that I wasn't even going to ask, but that other people do ask a lot, and it's the fact that you actually named, maybe as from a producer standpoint, like the three different areas of producing, which there really are, and the fact that you actually took time on the ground level, face-to-face studio time. That's kind of where you built your business from. And for me personally, I think that way, and transitioning into the online beat game is a little bit simpler than just going straight into the beat game online. I see a lot of producers nowadays, you know, they see other producers doing it, you know, and they just strictly, you know, they just go for the gold. Not saying that they can't, because I've seen a lot of successful people do it. Not saying that they can't, but the simple fact that you already have the knowledge of all the musical aspects down, you have music made, you have the relationships, face-to-face relationships. And that's one thing that I always point out to a lot of people, that it's easier to do business with someone who trusts you rather than you trying to build trust from a complete stranger and then sell them something. So you already have established a lot of relationships in the business aspect before you even got into the online beat game, which, like you said, that's a monster all of its own, and it takes a whole lot of time away from the studio. I mean, there's times that, you know, personally, me, I don't even sit in the studio. I sit in my bed on the laptop the whole time, because that's what it is. But it's good to hear that, you know, how you specifically built the foundation of what you do now, and it's strictly off of understanding music and the music game first off, because that's the reason why we're in it, you know. And it's not like, you know, if you just start up the business online, then in a sense you're putting out two different signals, that you're selling music and that you create it. But the fact is that you lose the sense of creating music sometimes if you strictly focus on just selling it. So the fact that you actually have the foundation of the music scene face to face with the studio time and just being a producer, you know, that kind of helps you out in the business and in the and especially with your online game. I mean, as soon as you, like you said, you're fairly new to it, but when you kind of hit the online game, it's a lot of people kind of recognize it. Like I remember I just kept seeing the logo everywhere. Then I would hear the beat, and all right. Then later I'll see the logo somewhere else, and I hear a beat. I'm like, all right, hear a logo, and I'm come to find out, I'm like, wow, they are everywhere. I'm like, look, I gotta follow them now. You know what I mean? So
I guess it's working then.
Yeah, it's definitely working. I mean,
yeah, no, right on, bro. That's great. That's good to hear. But no, I just wanted to touch a little bit more on what you're saying about sort of that other thing of kind of sitting on your laptop in your room and not doing the creative side of it. You know, it's I do enjoy it. You know, I like coming up with the strategies and that kind of stuff. But there really is a downside to it, and I've actually been struggling that, especially really the last few weeks, honestly, more than ever, where it's a good problem to have, but it's like my email inbox is flooded, you know, which is it sounds weird to complain about, right? Because it's business. It's people who want to do business with me. It's great, and I've got a membership program too, which I can go into a little bit more if you want. But you know, there's all this stuff that goes into it where, you know, on Monday I spent about 4 hours just catching up on email, and it's like, again, it's great. I love that I put forward all this effort into marketing and promoting, and now I'm seeing that come back. But now I'm realizing that's not necessarily how I want to spend my day. So I don't necessarily have all the way the answer, but it's something that I do want to let people know that's a realistic part of it. And part of what I'm learning about, or one solution that I'm really trying to implement, is bringing more people on board. So I've got my team that I've been making music with for a long time. So that's great. But now I'm trying to also incorporate people where I can say, hey, this is how, if I post up a new beat, I'm posting it up on YouTube, I'm posting it up on SoundCloud, SoundClick, BeatStars, SoundGen. There's a million places. It takes like an hour to post up a beat, but now I've got somebody who's doing that specific job for me. And, I want to start having somebody who's going to be able to answer my emails eventually, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do, which is make beats, first of all. Can't forget about that, right? And then also, even from the marketing promoting aspect, the part that's really more fun, at least for me, is coming up with the ideas. But then sitting there and implementing it is not necessarily that exciting, and it's not necessarily the best use of my time. You know what I mean? If maybe I can pay somebody who really wants to learn about this stuff, and they're willing to do it for really cheap, or maybe even free, because they get experience. And then that leaves me more time to do something that's, make a beat, come up with a new strategy, something that's more valuable than just answering an email, which needs to get done. That's sort of what I'm up against right now. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that.
That's good to hear, that you can actually get somebody just to answer your emails.
That's my next goal. That one I haven't been able to implement yet, but that's the next plan, is to slowly train somebody and figure out how to hand it over to somebody. It's hard to give up control too, because if you're an entrepreneur, if you've got your own business, then you probably feel like, well, I can do this better than somebody else, right? But the truth is, even if somebody can do it 75% is good, if that means they're doing that and you're doing something that's going to make you 3 times as much money, or it has 3 times, it's not all about money, but it's 3 times more valuable, like it'll help you get a placement, whatever, then that's a trade-off, you need to be willing to make. You need to be willing to give up some of that control, which is not easy to do, but that's something that I'm up against and working.
All right. So what was the point in your career that you knew that you were making a difference, I guess, in terms like, when did you know for yourself that you're like, what, I'm actually doing something?
Interesting. I think there's been a few points along the way that have been like, okay, I kind of made it to this next little step, and then this next little step, because it's not, anybody who's in music knows it's not like, oh, here's today, I didn't make it, here's the next day, I made it. There's always all these different sort of checkpoints along the way, and you always kind of want to make it to that next step. But I know one big one for me was back in it was probably like 2006, maybe 2007. I'd been making beats for Phil for a while, and a singer came over to the studio named Matt Black. Mm-hmm. And he was somebody who had actually met at Tarpan, super talented singer, writer. And he came over and he wrote and recorded 5 different hooks. So on beats that we had, all in one night. That's how prolific this dude is. He came up with the concept, recorded it, harmony, whatever, all that shit. And then he went over and he played them all for Messy Marv. And Messy Marv said he wanted all 5 of them. So I remember getting that phone call of like, hey, Mess wants all 5 of those tracks. And I felt like, I'm on. I did it. I'm famous. You know what I mean? And it's such a small, it seems like such a small scale or whatever. And, but to me, that was like somebody who I listened to growing up and I was a big fan of. And I was like, that's crazy. So that was a big one. I'll always remember that feeling. Another one was I remember driving, in my car the first time I heard myself on the radio, heard one of my own songs that I produced. It was a song we did for an artist named Keef the Sneak. It was called Nothing Without You. Actually, they had Matt Black on the hook as well. And I remember I was listening to KMEL, which is like the big hip hop station out here. I was pulling up to the studio and the song came on. And I was like confused for a minute. Like, wait, did I pop in the CD? And then I was like, oh, shit. We're on the radio. So that was a big one. And, so there's been different little checkpoints along the way where I try to really remember to take it in and really enjoy it in the moment and try to remember it so I can go back and remember that feeling, be like, yeah, I want to have that feeling again. So what's the next thing I need to do to make myself feel like that?
All right, so without being biased towards the many people you've worked with, but if you had to pick one artist that you that you feel like was the best piece of work you've done with, what artist would that be?
Where I'm sorry, it cut out a little bit. So you're saying what?
Like what? Who is that one artist that you think that you was your favorite to produce for?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is tough.
without being biased, let me say
Right.
that.
I mean, man, I guess the definitely working with Messy Marv was a big one because that was really one of my favorite artists. That was somebody who kind of put us on where it took us sort of that next level where a lot of people knew who we were. But now let me think. Yeah, I'll just stick with that. We'll go Messy Marv. He was the guy. That was a big step. So there's so many artists that I've been excited to work with, but that was sort of that first one where it went from sort of not really working with anybody that maybe anybody else had heard of to somebody who had. So that'll always kind of hold a special place for me.
Wow. All right. Well, let me ask you this. What if you had a most valuable tip that you could give to other producers trying to find success in the music industry right now, what tip would that be?
Man, that's tricky because there's so many, like we're talking about, there's so many aspects, right? There's like, I could give like a marketing tip, or I could give like I'll do this, let's keep it, for this question at least, I'll keep it a little bit more about the music because I think it's easy to forget that's what it's all about, really. Like you can learn all about email marketing and all that stuff, and that's great, but really it's about, the quality of music. So I know for me, a big tool for me in getting better as a producer, especially when I was first starting out, was listening to songs I like and then trying to recreate that exact beat and try to get as close as possible, like note for note, sound for sound, the rhythm, the sex, everything. What that forces you to do is it makes you actively listen in a way that you just wouldn't otherwise. Like, sure, every producer, if they're listening to music, they're always kind of active and going like, oh, okay, I hear that snare or whatever. But if you need to recreate that note for note, you'll listen to it in a way that you hadn't before, and it will force you to step up your game because you'll have to figure out, hey, how did they play that, or what's the closest I can get to that instrument, or what did they do to that kick drum or whatever. And to me, that's something that's a great learning tool. And then you can kind of evolve from there and go, okay, so obviously you recreate a beat, you can't really sell it. But what you can do is now you can start taking elements. You could say, you know what, let me just take the drums, which is actually something I do a lot, where I'll listen to something and be like, oh, I like those drums. And then I'll recreate the drums, pretty as close as I can, and then maybe build something completely different on top of it. And that's not something where you're getting into any copyright issues or anything like that. And really, honestly, you could listen to both songs back to back and you wouldn't even notice because it's got a completely different structure on top of it. But being able to listen to music you like and then being able to recreate it, to me, that's a great tool to get you where you want to be.
Yeah, that's I actually have done that a couple of times with a couple of beats. Not too often, but you do find yourself it's hard to recreate something so elaborate sometimes, but it really does forces your ear to actually listen. I'm a piano player and a drummer as well, so a lot of times I pick up on little riffs and runs that normally if you were just listening to it one time you wouldn't have picked up on, but it's like you literally train your ear to look for things, and when you do that, you'll find yourself in your DAW looking for things, going through your keyboard looking for things. Like you'd be like, no, I don't like 32 notes there, 30-second notes there. I like 60 notes there. Like, but normally before you would never think of anything like that because you don't train yourself. All you do is nowadays you listen to songs, and I'm going to say it, a lot of times you just hear the 808. And then it's like, okay, cool. You know what? I got an 808 just like that. And it's like, no, It's like it's like, have you ever tried to play an arpeggio by hand? You know what I mean? Instead of pushing a button. Have you ever tried to play it? You know, but that really forces you to actually. Oh, that's a really good tip. Matter of fact, I think I have some homework to do just off of that. So, what are some things that you have planned for the Legion in the future? Like, what's to come next?
For me, it's trying to figure out, like I was talking about, how I can delegate a little bit more of the sort of what would you call it? Some of the daily work kind of stuff, the admin side of it, and that'll allow me to get back to, not that I've ever stopped making beats, but to really focus on production, really focus on making more beats. And I'm looking to get, trying to get that music out there. Also, selling beats, of course, online, but also reaching out to some of the connections I've made as far as, some artists that have, a big reach and stuff like that. So that's definitely one of the focuses, is getting placements. Another focus is figuring out how to kind of delegate more of the admin side of the business. And man, what else? Eventually, I do. It's funny, you were joking about everybody has a webinar and a how-to course or whatever. And that is something I eventually do want to do for producers, because I do feel like,
it works.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that I've been really studying this last couple of years, is, how to promote yourself online. And I've been able to do a pretty good job of it, but I still want to do at least a little more. So I'm not starting that tomorrow, but I want to feel like, I'm at a level where, I have a certain revenue every month that I know I'm hitting. And I have certain numbers that I have in my mind that I want to hit first. And then I can say, okay, look, I did this. Now I can show you how. So I don't want it to be some bullshit like, oh yeah, I'm an expert immediately. I want it to be something where I can create real value, and I can give a blueprint to newer producers and say, hey, this is exactly what worked for me. It really worked. You could try it too. So that's probably 2017, somewhere around there. But it's in the back of my mind, and I'm sort of starting to hatch the plan for that.
Yeah, there's nothing like setting up residual income. Just know it's gonna be there. So, is there an artist or a business or someone out there that you would die to work with?
Yeah, man, there's a lot. I don't know. To me, it's always been exciting, the idea of reaching a lot of people with my music. Whenever I hear somebody say, hey, that song that you did, it brings me back to my time in high school. Like, that was like the soundtrack to my life, like, not to make it something so deep or whatever, but there is something to that where if you hear some music, it takes you back to a certain time. And, to me, to be a part of that, to be somebody who's on the creative end and creating something that's sort of the backdrop for somebody's life, to me, that's what it's all about. And so I always want to do that on a biggest scale as possible. So, working with artists where they're, on the Hot 100, that's always a goal for me, is getting a song on the Hot 100. So more than a specific artist, it's just making great music that's going to reach a lot of people. That's really what I'm shooting for.
Cool. We got one. Man. If there was a place who could reach you, where would they go to find you?
Man, just legionbeats.com is kind of the headquarters. You can get all the links to all the social media and email and all that kind of stuff. Although, man, don't even email me. I got too many emails. No, feel free if you have, and I really do like to take the time. If you're a producer, an artist, or whatever, somebody asks me a question like, hey, how do I do this, or whatever. It might take me a few days to get back to you, but I really do like to do that. So feel free to hit me up. legionbeats.com will give you all the links to everything. So that's where you can kind of see what we're up to, the membership program I was talking about, and eventually the producer, course, and all our social media and the beats and all that.
Yeah, there's nothing like being human sometimes. Nothing like it. So, man, I don't have any more questions. You have anything else that you want to say to the people?
Man, like I said, I really like what you got going on. So I'm honored to be a part of it, and I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and once again, this is Keyz. with Gabe, man, from the Legion. KeefKeyz.com. If you want any more tips, more interviews, you can go to KeefKeyz.com. Check the blog out, subscribe, and I will holler at you later. One.